Hello, miladies of inestimable value. Every Sigma female has a breaking point. She just hides it so well that even the universe forgets she has one. Most people assume Sigma females are unshakable, silent fortresses, unbothered, unbreakable, untouchable. But psychologists have found that the quietest personalities often have the sharpest internal stress spikes, meaning they don't explode gradually. They snap all at once. And when a Sigma female snaps, it's not fireworks. It's a system-wide shutdown mixed with a precision strike. This video isn't about mood swings or dramatic outbursts. A Sigma female snapping looks nothing like what the average person expects. In fact, it's so subtle and calculated that most people don't realize anything is wrong until she has already. And yes, by then it's too late to ask, "Are you okay?" Because she's not, and she's also not entertaining that question. You're about to see the 12 rare, eerie, and brutally honest warning signs that a Sigma female is reaching her limit. Signs so unique and unnervingly subtle that ignoring them is like ignoring your phone battery at 2%. You know it's about to die, but somehow you still pretend it's immortal. Let's dive into the signals most people never notice until the Sigma has already snapped. Number 1. She withdraws her imagination from the relationship. For a Sigma female, imagination isn't just a pastime, it's the engine that drives her connection to the world and the people she values. She doesn't merely dream or plan, she mentally constructs lives, experiences, and futures with precision. She visualizes outcomes, anticipates responses, and even mentally rehearses conversations, all as a way of mapping her emotional and practical landscape. When she's invested, this imaginative engagement is relentless, vibrant, and deeply personal. But the moment she starts withdrawing that mental energy, it's not subtle, it's seismic. This withdrawal isn't about being moody or distracted, it's deliberate, almost clinical. She stops envisioning shared moments, refrains from planning joint futures, and no longer mentally invests in the what could be. Her mind, once a playground where possibilities were endlessly explored, becomes a sealed room. People around her often misread it as aloofness or temporary disinterest, but in reality, it signals that her internal bridge to them is quietly burning. Every mental image she removes is a piece of emotional detachment, and the pace is faster than anyone can track. Her imagination is also how she processes connection. Without it, she's no longer rehearsing compromises, thinking through reactions, or anticipating how to protect the emotional balance in the relationship. The withdrawal is like cutting the power to a city. You don't notice the absence of light immediately, but the darkness is absolute and undeniable. This is why, when a Sigma female stops imagining a shared future or ceases to mentally rehearse interactions, it's not a temporary mood shift. It's a signal she has already decided the emotional investment isn't worth the energy anymore. What makes this shift terrifyingly effective is that it happens inside her head long before any visible action. By the time she starts acting on it, she has already mentally separated herself from the relationship in every dimension that matters. She doesn't announce it. She doesn't debate it. She simply disengages the mental space where intimacy, trust, and care were once actively constructed, leaving the other party to slowly realize that the bond they thought existed has already been dismantled. This is the quiet but unmistakable precursor to a Sigma female snapping. The moment her imagination retreats, her presence begins its silent, inevitable withdrawal. Number 2. Her intuition becomes savage instead of soft. A Sigma female's intuition is usually her quiet superpower. It's subtle, almost invisible to those around her, guiding her decisions, shielding her from unnecessary drama, and giving her an almost supernatural sense of timing. Normally, it's soft, careful, and discerning, like a whisper that helps her navigate the world without unnecessary confrontation. But when she's on the edge of snapping, that same intuition transforms into something sharp, precise, and ruthless. It stops being gentle guidance and becomes a weapon. She begins to predict motives, intentions, and consequences with ruthless accuracy. Every word, gesture, and micro-expression from the people around her gets processed instantly, not with empathy but with surgical detachment. She sees patterns others can't, and the conclusions she draws aren't forgiving. This isn't paranoia. It's an evolved, honed mental radar that identifies threats, weaknesses, and opportunities with alarming clarity. What was once a shield becomes a spotlight, exposing everything she has tolerated quietly up until now. Her savage intuition manifests in her actions and presence, even before she physically reacts. She starts avoiding people preemptively, disengaging emotionally without a word, and redirecting her energy away from anyone who might compromise her. Decisions she makes become non-negotiable. People notice the subtle shift. The warmth, patience, and flexibility she once offered evaporates, but they can't pinpoint why. That's because her mind has already run every scenario, predicted every outcome, and silently determined who stays in her world and who doesn't. The danger lies in how discreet it is. This sharpened intuition doesn't need confrontation to assert itself. She doesn't lash out without reason. She simply moves, cuts, and restructures silently, guided by the precision of her perception. When a Sigma female's intuition goes savage, she's already 3 steps ahead, emotionally and strategically. It's a warning that the soft, intuitive guidance people were used to is gone, replaced by a calculated, unyielding awareness that ensures nothing, and no one, will waste her energy again. This is the mental edge of snapping, a quiet, invisible storm building inside her mind, ready to manifest in ways that are often too late for anyone else to escape. Number 3. She suddenly stops explaining herself. A Sigma female usually carries a unique balance of silence and explanation. She doesn't over-justify herself, but when it matters, she provides clarity, reasoning, or context to ensure her decisions and boundaries are understood. It's part of her way to keep connections meaningful while maintaining her independence. But when she reaches the edge of snapping, that changes. The explanations stop completely. She no longer feels the need to clarify, defend, or justify her actions to anyone. Her silence isn't passive, it's decisive, deliberate, and loaded with meaning. This shift signals a fundamental change in how she interacts with the world. Where she once weighed words carefully to protect relationships or prevent misunderstandings, she now considers them unnecessary. She recognizes that explaining herself to people who don't respect her limits or intentions is wasted energy. Every word she doesn't speak is a boundary reinforced. Every question she ignores is a line drawn. And every argument she skips is a subtle declaration of independence. She's no longer participating in the illusion that mutual understanding can be negotiated. She's exited that mental game entirely. When a Sigma female stops explaining herself, the people around her often misinterpret it as withdrawal, moodiness, or disinterest. In reality, it's far more calculated than that. She has already decided who belongs in her life and who doesn't. Her silence becomes an emotional firewall that protects her from manipulation, unnecessary drama, and energy drains. It's an invisible but unmistakable signal. She is done investing in the mental labor of justification, and anyone expecting explanations will find none forthcoming. This sudden cessation of explanation is one of the clearest precursors to a Sigma female snapping. It's her way of reclaiming control without confrontation, drawing invisible lines around herself and signaling that her patience has reached its limit. By the time this silence is noticeable, she has already mentally prepared the space to remove toxicity from her life. It's quiet, it's unannounced, and it's terrifyingly effective. The moment she stops explaining herself, she's not just withdrawing words, she's withdrawing permission for anyone to influence or intrude on her life. Number 4. She begins replacing people's roles in her life internally before doing it externally. One of the most subtle but unmistakable signs that a Sigma female is about to snap is the internal replacement of people in her life. Long before she takes any visible action, she begins restructuring her world mentally. She assigns new roles to others in her mind, decides who will stay, who will fade, and who no longer has a place in her life. This isn't a random exercise. It's an emotional and strategic recalibration. She's silently testing scenarios, imagining interactions, and calculating outcomes, all without alerting anyone to the fact that her loyalty and energy are already being redirected elsewhere. This internal replacement is precise. She doesn't just remove someone from her mental life. She evaluates what they contribute, what they drain, and whether their presence aligns with the future she is quietly building. Every interaction is filtered through this new internal hierarchy, and the people who fail the test are mentally replaced by either independence, new alliances, or simply emptiness. This process happens entirely in her mind, making it invisible until the effects manifest externally. By the time anyone notices the shift, she has already mentally completed the removal and reallocation of her energy. What makes this even more striking is that she doesn't announce it, justify it, or leave any dramatic trail. Her actions are surgical, quiet, and final. She doesn't need confrontation. She doesn't need to explain herself. She has already decided how her life will look without the people who no longer serve her purpose, and she begins adjusting her behaviors accordingly. Conversations become shorter, engagements less frequent, and emotional investment drops incrementally, almost imperceptibly. This mental restructuring is a precursor to her snap because it signals that she has stopped tolerating unnecessary energy drains. Her patience, empathy, and attention are finite resources, and once she begins internal replacement, she is actively preparing to withdraw externally. By the time she physically distances herself, the decision has been fully executed in her mind. The quiet recalibration of roles is a dangerous, invisible step that indicates she's already halfway out of the life you thought you shared. Number 5. She gives one final gesture of kindness, but it feels like a goodbye gift. When a Sigma female is on the verge of snapping, one of the most disarming and often misunderstood signs is her final act of kindness. This isn't the casual generosity or thoughtful gesture she gives freely when life is calm. This is different. It's precise, deliberate, and carries an invisible weight. It's a way of closing a chapter on her own terms, a signal that she's ready to withdraw, and a silent farewell that most people fail to recognize until it's too late. This final gesture often appears as ordinary on the surface, a smile, a small favor, a thoughtful word. But underneath, it's a closing statement. It's her way of leaving something behind that says, "I cared once, and now I'm done." She doesn't announce it. She doesn't make a scene. The act is quiet, almost tender, yet loaded with finality. It's meant for the recipient to remember, not to influence. In that moment, she's offering closure while simultaneously reclaiming her emotional freedom. What makes it exceptional is the contrast between the gesture and her internal state. She can appear warm and generous externally while her mind has already moved on. The kindness is calculated, designed to leave no loose threads, no lingering guilt, no unresolved tension. It's a final balance she strikes between care and detachment, a way of honoring her own boundaries without burning bridges in a dramatic way. Those who receive this gesture often misinterpret it as reassurance, encouragement, or a sign that everything is fine. In reality, it's the calm before the storm. By the time her absence or withdrawal becomes apparent, the gift has already fulfilled its purpose. It signals an emotional exit that is as silent as it is definitive. This final act of kindness is the ultimate expression of a Sigma female's control over her life and emotions. She leaves with grace, but make no mistake, the departure is absolute. When this happens, the snap isn't loud, it's complete, inevitable, and unchangeable. Number 6. She starts cleaning up her emotional energy like it's a crime scene. A Sigma female's emotional energy is her most valuable resource, and she guards it fiercely. When she starts cleaning it up, it's not casual or superficial. It's meticulous and all-encompassing. She begins identifying every connection, every subtle influence, and every residue of emotional investment that doesn't serve her. This can mean disengaging from people who drain her, withdrawing trust from those who manipulate her, or simply removing herself mentally from situations that carry hidden tension. Every small attachment is examined, assessed, and either reinforced or severed. This process looks quiet and almost invisible to outsiders, but it's intensely strategic. She doesn't announce it, argue about it, or seek validation. Every action is calculated to reclaim her inner balance without creating unnecessary chaos. Micro-attacks on her boundaries, subtle manipulations, or lingering emotional obligations are all wiped away, leaving her field clean and untouchable. In a sense, she's creating an invisible buffer zone around herself, a mental and emotional perimeter that ensures she won't be disrupted when the breaking point arrives. Her behavior may seem strange or cold during this period. She may appear detached, aloof, or unusually focused on herself. This isn't self-centeredness in the usual sense. It's self-preservation in its purest form. By cleaning up her emotional energy, she is preparing for the inevitable snap, ensuring that when she reaches the limit, she detonates only where it matters, without collateral damage to her own well-being. This silent, crime scene cleanup is a signal that her patience has been exhausted. She's methodically reclaiming control, separating what belongs to her from what was imposed by others, and fortifying herself for a decisive response. By the time she acts, she has already mapped out the landscape of her emotional territory, leaving no loose ends, no regrets, and no vulnerability. It's a terrifyingly effective warning. When a Sigma female begins this process, she is closer to snapping than anyone around her realizes, and the explosion, when it comes, will be precise, calculated, and unstoppable. Number 7. Her replies become so precise, they feel like surgical incisions. When a Sigma female is nearing her breaking point, her words transform from casual communication into instruments of precision. She stops using the warmth, cushioning, or nuance that once softened her messages. Every sentence is stripped down to its essentials, delivered with exact timing and perfect clarity. There's no filler, no emotional padding, no room for misinterpretation. Her language becomes calculated, sharp, and deliberate, the way a surgeon wields a scalpel, cutting only where necessary, and leaving no unnecessary trace behind. This shift is more than just cold efficiency. It's a warning signal. She's no longer interested in social pleasantries or maintaining illusions of harmony. Each word is chosen to communicate meaning while protecting her boundaries, and to expose the truth of situations with surgical clarity. The precision in her speech reflects the precision of her mind. She's mapping who belongs in her life, who doesn't, and exactly how she will navigate the impending fallout. To anyone on the receiving end, her replies can feel unnervingly direct, almost disarming. There's a tension in the brevity, an underlying awareness that nothing she says is accidental. Every phrase is intentional, a reflection of her internal processing and the mental separation she's beginning to enforce. Conversations that were once fluid and dynamic may now feel sharp, tense, or even confrontational, not because she wants to attack, but because her words are now weapons of clarity and control. This linguistic precision also mirrors her emotional state. She is detaching from unnecessary drama and conserving energy for the things that truly matter. By stripping away embellishments, she ensures that her communication leaves no room for manipulation, misinterpretation, or wasted emotional investment. Her snaps don't come with a warning, but the meticulousness in her speech is as close to a signpost as anyone will get. When her replies cut this cleanly, it signals that she has already mentally compartmentalized her world and is preparing for decisive, unavoidable action. Number 8. She starts observing everyone like she's building a psychological exit strategy. When a Sigma female begins to observe everyone around her with quiet intensity, it's rarely about curiosity or judgment. It's strategy. She isn't pulling away for peace or reflection. She's pulling back to map the terrain of her life. Every glance, every gesture, every word from people around her is analyzed, categorized, and filed. She's collecting data on motives, patterns, loyalties, and weaknesses, not to confront, but to prepare herself for a clean, controlled exit. This observation is subtle and often invisible. She can sit in a room, interacting minimally, yet mentally she's orchestrating her departure. Who drains her energy? Who can be trusted? Who will react unpredictably? She notes it all. By the time she acts, she already knows the emotional and social consequences of every move she makes. It's meticulous, precise, and almost surgical. She's not acting in haste. She's preparing for a withdrawal that will leave her untouchable and unaccountable. This behavior can feel unnerving to those around her because it's so different from normal detachment. People may mistake it for introversion, distraction, or silence. But in reality, she's calculating the safest, most efficient way to disengage. Every smile, every polite word, and every interaction is measured, as if she's testing boundaries and assessing how much energy she can safely invest before pulling away completely. Her psychological exit strategy ensures that when she finally leaves, it appears seamless, almost like she was never there in the first place. There's no chaos, no dramatic confrontation, no emotional pleading. The people she leaves behind may not even realize she was planning her departure until it's fully executed. This silent, analytical process is one of the clearest warning signs that a Sigma female is nearing her breaking point. She is not just disengaging, she is strategizing, preparing, and positioning herself to walk away with complete control over the aftermath, leaving nothing to chance and no loose ends behind. Number 9. She stops correcting people's lies because she's done caring about the fallout. A Sigma female's silence in the face of lies is never accidental. Normally, she values clarity and integrity. She corrects falsehoods, sets records straight, and ensures that truth remains intact. But when she stops, it's not laziness or apathy. It's a deliberate signal that she has withdrawn her energy from the situation entirely. She's done investing in explanations, defending herself, or policing the narratives of others. Each lie she lets slide is a conscious choice to disengage emotionally, mentally, and sometimes even physically. This behavior is a precursor to snapping because it shows that she has reached her limit of tolerance. By no longer correcting falsehoods, she's emotionally divorcing herself from people and situations that once demanded her attention. Silence becomes a shield, a boundary, and a countdown all at once. She's no longer participating in the drama of being misunderstood or manipulated. She's stepping back and letting the consequences of other people's actions fall where they may. It's important to understand that this withdrawal is not passive. In fact, it's incredibly active. Each uncorrected lie is a deliberate move in her strategy to preserve her emotional energy. She is redirecting her focus toward her own priorities and away from those who are unworthy of her investment. The people around her may interpret it as indifference, but in reality, it is a sign of precise internal calculation. She's setting the stage for a clean break, making sure that when she finally acts, she is untouched by unnecessary entanglements. Her silence in this context is terrifyingly effective. It signals the approaching snap in a way that's almost invisible until the moment arrives. The lies she no longer addresses accumulate, and the tension quietly builds, until it reaches the point where she no longer needs words or explanations. By the time anyone notices, she has already withdrawn emotionally and mentally, and the eventual fallout is a direct consequence of the boundaries she silently enforced. This is the calm before the storm, and it's a warning that her breaking point is dangerously close. Number 10. She starts giving people the bare minimum courtesy instead of her signature depth. A Sigma female is known for her depth. She engages fully, invests her attention deliberately, and treats interactions with a weight that few can match. Her conversations aren't surface level. Her gestures carry meaning. Her presence demands authenticity, and she communicates with an unspoken understanding that energy is not to be wasted. But when she begins giving only the bare minimum, it's a clear signal that something has shifted internally. She's no longer interested in extending herself beyond what is absolutely necessary. This withdrawal of depth is precise and calculated. She doesn't lash out or make a scene. She simply disengages in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. Conversations are clipped, smiles are polite but fleeting, and gestures that once carried layers of thought and care become transactional. It's not that she has become unkind. She's simply prioritizing her energy, conserving it for the people and experiences that matter most. Those who were once recipients of her nuanced attention suddenly feel a cold efficiency where warmth once existed. The change is disorienting because it doesn't announce itself dramatically. It creeps into interactions like a quiet shift in gravity. Her energy, which once elevated and enriched the spaces she occupied, is now measured, limited, and intentional. By giving only the bare minimum, she communicates boundaries without confrontation and signals disengagement without argument. This behavior is a precursor to snapping because it shows she has mentally and emotionally checked out long before she acts. The people around her may try to test her, push her, or demand explanations, but her reduced courtesy is a deliberate buffer. She is no longer willing to expend emotional labor on anyone who has eroded her patience or crossed her boundaries. This strategic minimalism allows her to protect herself while preparing for the next phase, whether it's a quiet exit, a recalibration of relationships, or a final decisive snap. By the time her withdrawal becomes visible, she has already reshaped her emotional landscape internally. The bare minimum is not indifference, it's the last line of defense, a warning that her tolerance has reached its limit, and that she is ready to act with calculated finality. Number 11. She stops asking clarifying questions, which means she's no longer trying to understand you. A Sigma female's curiosity and intuition normally drive her to understand the people around her. She listens closely, asks questions, and seeks clarity. Not out of nosiness, but because she values truth, comprehension, and meaningful connection. When she suddenly stops asking questions, it's not a sign of disinterest in the casual sense. It's a signal that she has mentally checked out. She's no longer invested in deciphering motives, justifying actions, or untangling the layers of someone else's behavior. This withdrawal of curiosity is deliberate. She has reached the point where she recognizes that the effort required to understand certain people or situations is no longer worth her energy. Every unanswered question, every skipped inquiry, and every withheld follow-up is a boundary being reinforced. She is disengaging from unnecessary emotional labor, and her silence carries more weight than words ever could. This is the phase where she stops overextending herself to bridge gaps in understanding that are never reciprocated, and her energy is redirected entirely toward herself or toward situations that truly merit her attention. What makes this shift so powerful is how subtle it is. Those around her may notice fewer questions being asked, but they often misinterpret it as distraction, moodiness, or even arrogance. In reality, she has mentally catalogued the futility of certain interactions and decided to conserve her mental and emotional resources. The effort to probe, to clarify, and to engage deeply with others who drain or manipulate her has been consciously abandoned. This behavioral change is a strong precursor to snapping, because it demonstrates that she has drawn the line internally long before any outward confrontation. By ceasing to seek understanding, she is effectively removing herself from the influence, manipulation, and emotional demands of others. The moment she stops asking questions, she signals a mental and emotional withdrawal that makes her imminent snap not just likely, but unavoidable. Her silence is no longer passive. It's an intentional barrier that separates her from situations and people who no longer deserve her energy, marking the quiet beginning of her decisive and calculated response. Number 12. She gives you freedom, but in a way that feels like you've been released from her life. A Sigma female values freedom both for herself and for those she allows into her world. Normally, she balances independence with connection, granting space without detachment, encouraging growth without withdrawing care. But when she starts giving freedom in a different tone, it isn't generosity, it's a warning. It's the kind of freedom that feels less like choice and more like removal. She's no longer invested in the outcomes of your actions or the rhythm of your presence. Her detachment isn't careless, it's calculated. She's signaling that she has mentally checked out, and the space she offers is not temporary. It's preparatory for absence. This shift is subtle, yet profound. She doesn't argue, plead, or guilt you. She simply stops shaping her world around you. Decisions, interactions, and emotional energy that were once shared now exist solely in your own orbit. The freedom she grants is not encouragement. It's liberation from her involvement. By doing so, she maintains her composure while quietly creating distance, ensuring that when she eventually steps away, there is no dramatic confrontation or chaos. The act is deceptively calm, but the underlying intent is unmistakable. She is emotionally disentangling herself. What makes this particularly dangerous for those around her is the emotional clarity it masks. Many mistake her detachment for maturity, respect, or generosity, failing to notice that it's a precursor to a deeper withdrawal. She is no longer negotiating relationships or tolerating disruptions. She has already decided where her energy belongs, and anyone who doesn't fit that equation is gradually being released. This type of freedom is a psychological boundary dressed as kindness. It's a warning that her patience and tolerance have limits, and those limits are being reached. By the time her absence becomes visible, she has already completed the mental and emotional groundwork for leaving. Her freedom is not permission to act. It's a silent announcement that she is preparing to remove herself entirely, leaving only the space she has meticulously calculated to vacate. The moment this freedom feels like release, the snap is inevitable. The truth about Sigma females is that their strength, independence, and emotional intelligence often mask a depth of internal processing that few can perceive. When a Sigma female reaches her breaking point, the signs aren't always loud or dramatic. They are subtle, calculated, and extraordinarily precise. From the way she withdraws her imagination, sharpens her intuition, stops explaining herself, to the final acts of kindness that feel like farewells. Every action is a window into the internal storm she is preparing. These behaviors aren't random. They are part of a carefully orchestrated strategy to protect her energy, reclaim control, and ensure that when she does snap, it is on her terms, clean, decisive, and unavoidable. Understanding these warning signs isn't about fear or paranoia. It's about respect. A Sigma female doesn't need validation or permission to set boundaries, and ignoring these signs can lead to consequences that are swift and irreversible. Her world is one of precision, calculation, and emotional sovereignty, and once she decides that something or someone no longer belongs in her life, the shift is absolute. What makes it so fascinating and sometimes terrifying is how quietly it happens, how invisible the build-up can be, and how completely inevitable the outcome becomes once the signs are visible. Recognizing these behaviors gives insight into one of the most powerful personalities out there, a Sigma female who balances intelligence, independence, and emotional depth with a capacity for strategic action that few can match. It's a reminder that true strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it observes, calculates, and moves silently, leaving a mark that is unforgettable. If you found these insights powerful and want to dive deeper into the extraordinary world of Sigma personalities, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more unique and brutally honest content. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs to understand the subtle warning signs of a Sigma female about to snap. Your engagement helps us create even more content that cuts through the cliches and reveals the hidden truths most people overlook. Stay alert, stay informed, and never underestimate the quiet power of a Sigma female.